that. Good day, folks, and welcome once again to the Lonesome Cowboy podcast. And once again, I have a musician that I love to talk to, and I love listening to his music, and was just listening to his brand new single. This is Stephen Fearing. Stephen, how you doing, my friend?
Very good, Brian. How are you?
So far, so good. So, congrats on that first single coming from the new forthcoming album, The Empathist.
hmm
This song has a little bit of a different sound for you. I'm hearing this wonderful blast of brass at the beginning,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I went, hey, tell me all about that. Are you doing something different with this or with this album?
Well, um, th- focus specifically on the song, when I wrote it, I definitely heard horns, and I knew that I was going to be working with this guy named Jim Hoke down in Nashville, who's a session player down there and
Hmm.
a true multi-instrumentalist. A lot of multi-instrumentalists are a really great piano player and can kind of fudge around on other instruments convincingly, but with Jim, it's sort of hard to know what his main instrument is, and he does. So the band that played on the whole record is myself on guitar and voice, and a couple of overdubs of other guitar-y things. Ken Coomer, who co-produced it with me on drums and percussion. John Diamond, who plays bass. And then everything else you hear, apart from the guests, is Jim Hoke. So pedal steel, saxophones,
Wow.
accordion, harmonica, flute, piano, Wurlitzer,
Jeez.
on and on and on. I know it's really wild to know somebody and watch somebody go from reed instruments to string instruments, which is usually two worlds apart. But he's a very talented fellow and a lovely guy. And so when we recorded that, I let him know he did the piano part and the big piano solo, and I said, now I'm gonna ask you to overdub a sax part on this. So he basically created a sort of, I was thinking like Memphis horns, that
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
and that's what he did. He did three saxophone parts, and away he went.
No kidding. That's incredible. Where are
Yeah.
you? Where are you at with the rest of the album right now, Stephen?
Well, we're still, I've just approved the final illustration for the cover.
Gotcha.
And so now Buddy's laying it out, and creating it's going to be a gatefold vinyl. And
Oh,
I'm really thinking vinyl this time, and everything else is going to come from the vinyl. So the CD will come from that, and any artwork that we use for streaming purposes and all that is coming from the concept for the vinyl. So
awesome.
we're really close now to all the final parts in place, but we have obviously mastered tracks.
Hmm.
So now it's a matter of creating all the millions of nuggets of coal that I have to shovel into the social media furnace for the next 4 months before I release it.
Yeah, now you go back to be from musician, and now you're back to your other job as content creator.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. When can we expect to see this thing so everybody can get their grubby little mitts on it?
It'll be released officially in March, and before that, there'll be four other tracks released.
Oh, cool.
We were just going to focus on three tracks, but there's one song called Valentine's Day, which would be pretty stupid not to put out on Valentine's
Gee, I
Day.
wonder when that's coming out.
Yeah, yeah. If there was a song called Christmas Day, then I'd have four or five releases prior to the album going out. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's four focus tracks.
Okay.
I'm kind of playing this game of as best as I can, working the algorithms and the streamers, the Spotify's and the Apple Musics and all those pirate shysters that we have to deal with before I get to the main event, which is for me is putting a physical record on a merch table and
Yeah,
into record stores, and that'll be in March.
that's incredible. Yeah, great stuff. I have to ask quickly, The Empathist, is that a song title or is what's behind the name of the album, period?
Yeah, it is a song title, and it came about in a very weird way because, as you know, empathist is not actually a word.
No.
If you are, somebody who experiences or practices empathy, you're an empath. But so backtrack, I'm filling out a grant application, and this was 2 years ago almost now,
Yeah.
because I'd done the Indiegogo crowdfund, and that was successful, and I knew I was making a record. So now I'm looking for money to market it, which is kind of the more expensive part of the deal. So I'm applying to granting bodies, and they're asking me, for 10 song titles, and I don't have 10 song titles. 2 years ago, I had three. So I just started making them up. And if you could see, I got a library of books here, mostly biographies, but I just took things like Surrender by Bono, and I wrote Surrender as a song title. Words and music, Stephen Fearing, 3 minutes, 10 seconds, because it doesn't matter. I get that they need to kind of, it's sort of checks and balances to get the
Yeah.
idiots out of the mix. But
Yeah.
for me, I will be writing right, and was writing right up into the point where I got in the studio. And I think any good songwriter would do that, because sometimes as you get closer to a deadline, the juices really start to flow.
Sure.
But 2 years out, I mean, I know some people, like I remember talking with Fred Eaglesmith, and he has a book of songs that he just keeps adding to. And when he goes into a recording session, he just flips through
Thumbs
the
through
book.
it.
Look at this one.
Yeah.
I don't work like that. I go into a session with 10 or 12 songs that I've written for that session, and that's it. There is no more.
Wow, that's
And
crazy.
2 years out,
Yeah.
it's three songs, So
Yeah.
I was coming up with song titles, and the word empathist came into my head, and I had to look it up and realize that it was a made up word. And I started thinking about why I liked it more than empath. And then I wrote it down as a fake song title. And then I went back to the question one on the application, the name of your project, and I put it in as the name of the project, just for the application,
Sure.
just for, something like a
Yeah.
placeholder. But it grew on me, and I loved it. I loved that there's something, for me, there's something a bit more human about being an empathist. It's like being a hypnotist. It's something that you practice every day, and you might be a bit corny about it and have to wear a funny hat, but it's different than being an empath, which feels like something from Star Trek.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah. And
Wasn't
if
there
I felt like if I called the album The Empath, it would be so like, oh, get over yourself. What the fuck? Like, it's something so, I don't know what. My job often is to try and get away from being Mr. Earnest.
Yeah.
And so calling it The Empathist, everybody knows what I'm after, but it makes you think about it again. And that's always for me, what a good album title does, is kind of holds something and makes
Yeah.
you go, what?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It makes you think twice. Yeah, it's like a guy I know, and he's gonna be on the show. He's in Chicago, and his name is Jason Benefield, and he's putting out one called The Apothecary. Well, there is an apothecary, but it was like, well, that's a pharmacist. What's that all about?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, he and I should do double bills.
Oh,
The
what?
Apothecary and The Empathist. Like,
Yeah.
we could definitely start a law firm with those names.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. And you'd like Jason's stuff too very much.
Oh.
Now, you've talked about crowdfunding, and this podcast, the purpose I put it together is one of the things is to address things, us musicians that are DIY musicians. Now,
Yeah.
I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I didn't think of you as a DIY musician. But guess what? You are. And I mean, because I'm under the impression of, well, look, he's got Blackie and the Rodeo Kings. He must have a record label. He's got people he answers to. And then you did this, and I went, wait a minute, he's one of us.
Yeah.
So, this is a strange new world we live in now. It
is a really interesting new world.
You're the record label. You're the A&R guy. You're the songwriter. You're the only thing I think you don't do, Stephen, is book the tour.
That's right. I figure you can cut it right down to the bone, but the final bone is the agent. So my agent and I have a really good relationship, because she understands that I think of her as being as important to me as that's basically it. It's me and her. But yeah, to address your original sort of thing, yeah, we are living in really interesting times. I kind of got a sense that the world had tilted a little bit on its axis during COVID. I remember picking up my phone, and I was used to watching, Sean Colvin doing a live stream concert from her front room, with what was clearly her iPhone propped against a book. You know, it was like there was a lot of DIY stuff. The only person I saw that did a live stream that seemed to be sort of on the larger scale was Springsteen, and he clearly had two camera operators in the space or two USB cameras. I couldn't tell, but everybody else, we were doing it with either a camera mounted above our computer or an iPhone and some fairy lights behind us to make it look a little bit more interesting. But that was, it was like, how else am I going to get out in the world? And I
Yeah.
remember picking up my phone one day and looking at Instagram, and it was Bryan Adams going, "Hi, everyone. This is Bryan Adams. And, you know, in 6 months' time, I'm doing a show." And he was promoting his own show.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, the world has changed because he understands that now it's really important to have a personal connection with the audience. And that shifted somewhere. I remember seeing a quote from Brian Eno, who said that in the old days, you know, the band used to promo the album, and now the album promos the band. And
Hmm.
I think that in the old days, the fans used to stalk the performers, and now the performers stalk the fans. It's all about, please sign my mailing list, please like me, friend me, be part of my gang, because that's the only way. And as far as record companies are concerned, I did actually entertain the idea of I went to three different record companies with this album and sort of discussed the idea of putting it out through them. And there was nothing that they could offer me that I couldn't do myself. But what I'd be giving away would be not quite the farm, but, you know, a lot of acreage and a couple of barns. And you go,
Mm.
what's the point? I can do this myself. The scale has shrunk so much that those of us who have been in the business long enough have finally figured out how to do enough of the stuff that you kind of meet it halfway, you know.
Yeah, right.
It does mean that I won't have distribution in England, but and you know, around the rest of the world, but that's all covered through streaming and
Sure.
everything else. So since there's no record companies involved and there's no money to be made really from the sale of records, then why would a record company want to, you know, pony up 30, $40,000 to me to make a record that they're never going to see that money back? And that's what's
Right.
happened. It's only a very few artists that investors, which is what record companies are, want to, you know, take the risk. So the
Yeah,
rest of us
exactly.
have to figure out how to fund it ourselves.
So, for the DIY musician, that's, you know, what would you recommend to them starting out? Would say seek a label or stay in complete control of your career?
Yeah, it's definitely stay in complete control of your career. I know a couple of friends who are sort of they're in the early stages of their career as performer, and you know they've gone with these labels that are sort of, they're like 360 labels where they do publicity, they do they deal with the streaming services or the digital service providers. They will also do physical product for you and look after, so they look after everything for you, but what you have to give them is huge. And I would argue that if you're ambitious enough to decide that you want to put a record out, then it behooves you. There's a great word, especially on the Cowboy podcast.
There you go. Yes.
Behooves you
Yeah.
to have a long, hard think about, maybe stop thinking about reaching the world. Certainly, you can do that with the digital service providers, but start thinking about your province. How can I
Hmm.
reach my province, my town? How
Hmm.
could I press 100 CDs, 200, 500 CDs? And the numbers don't get much bigger than that.
No, that's
I'm
about it.
distributing through a company called Isotope out of Toronto, and they'll be putting my vinyl and my CDs into all the mom and pop stores across the country.
Nice.
And so I said to the guy who's running that organization distribution, I said, "So how many do you need from me?" Because I was terrified that I was going to have to like look at pressing, you know, 10,000 units, and that I just don't have the money for that because it's a lot of money up front, and
Oh,
it's just
yeah,
gonna
no
sit on
kidding.
shelves. And he
Yeah.
said, "Oh, I'll need about 400 vinyl from you." And I went, Really? He goes, yeah, that's about it. There's about 400 stores across the country, and each one will take one, maybe. Most of them will probably take one because they know you, and then it might take them a couple of weeks, a month. It depends. They could sell it like the next day. Somebody walks in, oh my God, Stephen Barron! But it might languish there for a month or 2 months. So it's like 400 vinyl. Wow, the business is just
It's just
it's
different.
completely imploded. It's
Yeah.
it's so different, and same with CDs. So there's a great song called "There'll Always Be a Small Time." And I can't remember the guy's name because I'm 61, a Toronto artist who's fantastic. And it's a great song because there will always be a small time. And you start with the small. And if you can make something happen small, then grow it. But
Yeah.
don't think, oh my God, I'm putting a record out. I have to reach. You can reach the world through the internet streamers, and you can do that yourself through a company like DistroKid, or there's any
Yeah.
number of them. It's easy,
I use those guys. Yeah.
relatively. It's a little bit of, but as far as product and all that, you don't need a record company. You just
Yeah.
need to figure out how to promote yourself the way that makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah. And I think what the big thing that I'm noticing, because myself and another musician from Hamilton, Will Gillespie, we're doing a tour in October,
Right
and
on.
we're touring Northern Ontario historic sites and playing gigs there. So we're
Nice.
starting here in Sault Ste. Marie at the Ermatinger Clerg National
Yeah.
Historic Site, and then Sudbury, North Bay, Kirkland Lake, all those places like that. So you gotta, and we're touring thematic albums. I
Uh-huh.
have the one that I'm putting out in January is in the tracks of the Black Bear. It's all about the ACR and the Goma Central Railway and short line railroads. And he's got one called Mine, which is about the mining stuff up in Cobalt. So we got some Northern Ontario stuff. I think that's what you have to think about. I was talking to Duncan Fremlin from
Yeah.
Whiskey Jack,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Duncan's a great guy. That's what Duncan said. He says he has to do the same thing. It's theater. He
Yeah.
he he almost he wrote his physically wrote his show, and
Yeah.
you got to give him something different. And he says, pick your audience. And he says your audience it doesn't want a show starting any later than 7 o'clock.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% with you, Brian. And I think you said the key word is it's show. You gotta create a show.
Yeah.
This sort of idea of being an artist. I mean, I love being an artist, and I know what that means to me. But it very much includes putting on a show and being mindful of leaving the audience so that when they walk out, they go, "That was great. I spent $30, $35, and I feel really good about that. And next time he comes to town, I'm buying a ticket."
Yeah.
And that's what you want to do. So,
Yeah.
apropos of what you're saying, I got a really good friend, Kathy Miller, who she sort of disappeared from the day-to-day folk scene. And I wondered where she was and what she was doing. And we crossed paths. This is years ago. And she started writing songs about quilting and
Wow. That's awesome.
basically cornered the market of so because quilting is this huge sort of one of these things that you don't
Yeah.
know about until you know
My
about it.
my sister was one of them before she
Yeah,
passed. Yes. I
yeah,
I
it's
have
a
I
massive.
have a few of her quilts around here.
But there's conventions and
Yeah.
conferences and so Kathy writes songs about quilting, and of course, if you pay attention to anything, there's stories, and that's what it
Yes.
is
Yeah.
writing stories, documenting it, and being that person that drills down into it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, figure out what it is and go after it.
Yeah. And there you go. Um, Songwriting sessions is something that you're offering now, or workshops, I guess you could say. And I had the
Yeah,
fortunate, great experience of having a short one with you as part of your crowdfunding. And I've gotten since then, I've took a workshop with Lynn Miles, and
cool.
I dig her. Yeah, she's
Yeah,
she's a riot,
yeah.
and you do that now too. So I looked on your website. I don't see where anybody can find out about your workshops, or can you tell us something?
Well, it's funny. The website has just undergone rather a large transformation, and so right now it's like I've just reinvented the car. So all I got in there is a steering wheel, a motor, and some wheels, and a bit of a shell. So
Right.
I'll be working on things like the glove compartment and lights and all that.
Gotcha.
But I had never done the idea of the Zoom songwriting session before.
Hmm.
It was one of these ideas that I came up with to, if you were going to crowdfund by selling CDs, signed CDs for 25 bucks a pop, well, you got to sell a lot of
Uh-huh.
CDs to make 30, $40,000, which is what's going to cost to go down to Nashville and record an album. Um, it's a lot. So how can you create sort of higher ticket items? And what do people want to spend 150 bucks on, you know? So I'd never done it before, and I was kind of amazed at how quickly that went. So I thought, okay, that's something I might do again in the future. I might keep it just for crowdfunding kind of thing. Like
Uh-huh.
it's a brave new world out there,
Yeah.
and I do believe you can teach old dogs new tricks, but somebody has to teach us. So nobody's coming along and saying, Stephen, have you thought about doing this and this and this? So it's really my own imagination to come up with these ideas. But this medium, this is really powerful, and
Oh, yeah.
people want to not only engage with performers through this, but they also want to watch. And so there's a lot more to be done with this, and I'm just scratching the surface. So I what I like to do with songwriting workshops is if I come through your town, come through the day before and
Yeah. And that's what Lynn did.
put 20
Yeah.
people together, and we'll have a songwriting workshop. That's something that I will be putting on the website
Yeah.
at some point soon. I kind
Yeah.
of got to get this whole album thing out of the way
There you
first.
go. Well, Beverly had it in the press release, so I jumped on
Okay. Yeah, well, right on.
it. There you go. So you just recently finished up something else that you do, these tours in Ireland.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Of course, you're
Yeah.
going back to the motherland, eh?
I'm going back to the motherland. I'm leading, so talking about ways to integrate with your audience and connect with people. This organization called Innisfree in Ireland came up with this model. It's been around for quite some time now. I think they're in their 10th or 15th year, which is basically using singer-songwriters, specifically singer-songwriters and people within the folk community, because there is a very strong community. The coffee houses, the folk clubs, the festivals, all of that is a very strong community, and it's pretty great as far as being a member of that community. You start to realize that these are people who are all in for the long run. Listeners, promoters, all of us are in because we love the music. And so I go to my audience, they say, "Look, I'm doing a tour in Ireland next year," and actually next year is already sold out. But
Wow.
there's 23 seats available. It'll be a 9-day tour. Everything is looked after, and I don't organize it. It's organized by Innisfree. My
Hmm.
job is to fill a bus, and then we will go and have a really good time. And I've done 3 of them now. There's great music every night. They bring local players into the hotel to the back room, or we go to a pub where there's a session that we know is going to be really good. And so it's to use the word that everybody's using, it's curated. But it's kind of for grown-ups too. You don't leave the hotel till 10 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
which is fantastic.
Uh-huh. I like
So
that.
everybody can get up and have their coffee and go for a little walk, and then we get on the bus, and the bus only holds 30 people. It's small.
Nice.
And we drive for an hour to a site. It might be something to do with the famine. It might be something to do with geographical. It's just we're going to go somewhere and learn a little bit of Irish history, and then we'll go for a walk, and then we'll go have a nice lunch somewhere, and then we'll go and talk with somebody else who's a historian or an archaeologist, and we'll just see Ireland and we'll learn. And then at night we'll go back to the hotel about 4. Everybody can go have a drink in the bar or freshen up, whatever they want to do, and
Uh-huh.
then there's music. And that's it. And it's just like
Wow.
9 days of that. And
Wow.
we only shift hotel 3 times. So you stay at one place for 3 days because Ireland is just, you chuck a rock and you're going to hit a historic site.
Yeah.
So just place yourself here and then we'll spend 3 days going around this area and then we'll move up here. And
Yeah.
it's really, it's a no-brainer. And what's really interesting is how many people do one and then go, that was really fun. I want to do it again. And
Yeah.
then
Right.
next year's sold out. So then they start booking for 2026. And it's so very quickly the whole thing just becomes its own thing. I basically do a little Facebook post and that's it.
And
So,
that's all you got to do. You're
and now I
done.
started doing them in Scotland too, which is for me, I don't know Scotland. So I'm
Hey.
walking it as sort of, I know probably less about it than a lot of people who are on the tour, but it's a very similar culture in many ways. Yeah.
All right. When did you lose your Irish lilt?
I don't know. Somewhere, I just spent 4 days in Dublin, and I started to notice it coming back a little bit. I was talking to
Oh,
people, my friends in Dublin, and there is definitely a Dublin thing, Dublin accent. It's
yeah.
different than the rest of the country, and I was starting to talk like that and saying "fuck" a lot. Fuck. And it's almost a term of endearment.
Well, yeah, but I heard when I first
It,
heard you speak, I thought you were from the East Coast. I thought you were like Nova Scotia. Now I know why.
it's I mean, I wasn't born there. I grew up there. I
Right.
left Canada when I was 7, 6.5, 7. So the Canadian thing came back, but I am kind of I'm a bit of a mimic without really being that conscious of it. So if I'm around people with a strong accent, I'll start to pick up on what just the
Sure.
inflections.
Yeah.
So when I
Yeah.
go back, it sometimes comes back as I get older, less and less.
Yeah, right. So when we were talking about doing things theatrically, I thought about your buddy Tom Wilson because that's what Tom's does too, and which made me think, what's going on with Blackie and the Rodeo King? Stephen, are you guys?
Yeah,
What do you got on the go for 2025?
a big question mark. Everybody's pretty busy.
Yeah, I see the
Tom's
guy.
working on a new book, I believe.
Yep.
Um, he's just opened a huge gallery show in London.
Yeah, I saw that.
Um, Colin is producing like crazy and I mean, Colin's just done something kind of amazing, which is he co-produced and co-wrote and played all over T-Bone Burnett's latest album. So
Jay.
start with like he co-produced
Well,
it
he
with T-Bone Burnett.
when he posted about it, he made it sound like he just played like on one song. So
Yeah.
he just diminished it. Now you just said that, but he was all over that thing, was he?
Yeah, he's all over it. He co-produced the album,
Yeah.
he co-wrote some of the songs, and he's playing all over it. And he's currently touring with T-Bone. But I'm so excited for him because
No
Colin's
kidding.
always been, I mean, he's one of the really great ones as a player. He's a great slide player. It always guts me when I see these stupid list your 10 favorite slide players on, Facebook, and everybody
Yeah.
is sort of listing all these people. It's like Colin Linden is one of the greatest slide players on the planet
Yeah, no kidding.
because he's so broad in what he does. People don't think of him as just a slide player. He's
Yeah.
also an incredible songwriter, producer, and so he's starting to really ring the bell with the scale of what he's doing. And
Hmm.
yeah, there's a couple of projects afoot that are kind of maybe I don't know what's going to happen with them, but people say, "Are you still working together?" It's like, oh, most definitely yes.
Yeah, sure.
But
Of course you
what that next thing is going to be, I don't really know, and I
Yeah.
just know that we're all busy, and I really have to put my energies because I just put a lot of money into this record, both the crowdfund and my own, and so now I got to go and really do justice to this album and sell it,
Yeah.
perform it,
Yeah.
really get behind it, and push it as far down the road as I can before I kind of slack off, and that's
Yeah.
going to take me at least a year, if not two.
Yeah.
So I got a tour coming up that'll start in March when the album drops, and I'll go from Victoria all the way to Winnipeg, and I'm bringing this Danish band, the Sentimentals, that I
Oh
work
yeah,
with.
you talked about them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be my band, and then we'll go to Europe, and I'm hoping later in the year I can bring them back to Ontario, and so it's exciting times, but it's just me and my agent and my project manager Jennifer, who kind of fields a lot of stuff for me. But I hire people as I need jobs done. But when it comes down to it, it's really just me and my agent, and we're both pedaling as fast as we can, which is great. I'm busy,
Mhm.
I'm occupied. That's all you can
Yeah.
ask, and I
It's
get to make a
obviously
living at
working.
it. So
Yeah.
yeah, no complaints whatsoever.
There you go. Well, Stephen, I can't thank you enough for coming on my new little project here, which seems to be catching on pretty good.
Right on.
And I really appreciate it. And I do thank you for all your help with songwriting that you gave me. And everybody said, "Oh yeah, but you paid him money. He's going to tell you what you want to hear." I says, "Nah." I says, "You don't know Stephen."
Oh, Brian, you're so welcome, and thank you for I learned this big lesson when I did the Indiegogo thing, which is, I mean, it's a bit terrifying. You sort
Yeah,
of
no
think,
kidding, eh?
what if nobody if nobody responds, then what
That's
is
why
that?
I never done one because it's like I wouldn't
It's
be able to
frightening.
take it. I'd be
Yeah.
crushed.
So people responded, and I, to me, it's really about strengthening the connection with the people who listen to what I do.
Yeah.
And fans I don't even like that word anymore because it's too simple. It's not a one-way street at all. It's a
No.
two-way street. And I know what I bring to the table, but I'm really starting to understand what the audience brings to the table as individuals, and that's really important. So thanks to you for getting involved in it because
Thank
I'm
you.
putting this record out now. People like you went, okay, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah. Well, hey,
So that's pretty awesome.
yeah. And I think that's like I said, there's lessons to be learned here, and I'm hoping I can
Mhm.
curate, there's that word again,
Yeah.
all these great stories from all these guys. I spoke to Ken Whiteley, his episode's coming up next, and I got a few of the guys that nobody's ever heard of, but
Yeah.
damn, they're good at it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
no, it takes all kinds to
yeah,
make this thing go.
yeah.
And that's what I do love about this community is there's lots of people that nobody's ever heard of, and they're
Mhm.
really, really good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like I got a guy coming up here, Zachary Lucky.
Yeah, I know him.
You know him, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. What a
He's great.
voice.
Yeah,
I
he's
know.
really good.
Yeah, he makes me want to hang up the guitar and go, okay. Stephen, thank you once again. And I'll
All
let you go, my friend. I'm a busy
right.
guy that you are. And
All right.
good luck with the rest of it. And we'll be watching for more. Hope that he see
Okay.
you in the Sioux.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, see you soon.
Okay, man.
Take
Take
care.
care. Bye bye.
Bye.